Now, the D's and the deep state, they are pushing their event to the extreme. I know the mainstream media is out there, and they're making it seem like this is the worst thing we've ever seen. But we need to remember something very important. Trump can end this in a split second. All he has to do is take away the fear part. And he's just about to do it. But not yet. Because Trump and the Patriots, they are using this entire crisis to their advantage. And we can see that the D's, the deep state, they are trying to pivot and maneuver a way to finish their 16-year plan. Now, Q has mentioned this before, and remember, they never thought she was going to lose. And it seems like they're pushing or putting all the players into place and preparing to move forward with the 16-year plan if they can win the election. And that is the whole entire push that they are doing right now. They're trying to win the election so they can continue on. But remember, Trump, the Patriots, they have the Trump card. And the big question is, when do you use the Trump card? We'll be talking about that a little bit later in this report. But first, we are seeing more individuals retire. And it's not CEOs. Now we're seeing those in the mainstream media say, you know something? It's time to leave. We see Chris Matthews. He's retiring from MSNBC. Now remember, these people have been pushing propaganda for quite a while. And they make up a lot of the stories. They receive the stories from the Western intelligence operatives. They just produce it. They don't do any investigative reporting. And a lot that they're pushing out there is completely made up. And now Trump, as we know, he's suing the New York Times. He is also now suing the Washington Post for libel over false defamatory statements about Russia conspiracy. Remember what Q told us. Libel laws. End of the mainstream media. So they're going to have to push this and prove that the mainstream media, they were pushing lies, falsehoods. And it was all propaganda. Is that really that difficult to prove? No, it is not. Now, most likely this might have to go up to many different courts. But I think in the end, Trump, the Patriots, they're going to have them. Now, very interestingly, we know that a lot of the deep state Ds, all those players, they decided to drop out of the race. And all the delegates went to Biden. But we know that Biden is in other trouble. But I believe that they're only using Biden to get where they want to go. And eventually what they might do is just drop Biden. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the investigation into Joe Biden. Now, the Ukrainian court has ordered an investigation into whether Joe Biden violated any laws when he forced the March 2016 firing of the country's chief prosecutor. Now, the Petscherski District Court of Kiev ruled last month that Shokin's lawyers had provided sufficient evidence to warrant probe and oblige the authorized officials of the State Bureau of Investigation to accept the ex-prosecutor's complaint and start pre-trial investigation of the reported data. Now, the ruling doesn't mention Biden by name, but court filings by Shokin's lawyers that led to the decision show that former prosecutors had alleged the commission of criminal offense against him by Joseph Biden, a citizen of the United States of America in Ukraine and abroad, interference in the activities of law enforcement officer. Ukraine officials say the court-ordered investigation could include a review of non-public documents and possibly even interviews. And as they go through this investigation, they're going to mention Joe Biden's name, Hunter Biden's name, Burisma, and the rest. We also have Senator Ron Johnson. He's set to issue the first subpoena in the Biden-Burisma probe, and we can see that they're closing in on Joe and Hunter Biden. So the Senate right now is looking into Burisma and also into Andrei Telizhenko. This individual, Andrei, worked as a political officer in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. between 2015 and 2016. In early 2016, Telizhenko was approached by DNC operative Alexandra Chalupa. She is still working at the DNC. She wanted dirt on Trump and his campaign manager, Paul Manafort. The Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. worked very closely with DNC operative and Hillary supporter Alexandra Chalupa. Chalupa told Andrei she wanted Russia dirt on the Trump campaign. Senator Ron Johnson will call in Andrei to testify in front of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. So Senator Ron Johnson, he's preparing to issue the first subpoena as part of the investigation into Burisma Holdings and into Hunter Biden, which will then link into Joe Biden, and so forth and so on. So it has all begun. And Biden thinks he's protected because he's running for the presidency. And we know from Q that this is not going to protect anyone. But I do believe with Biden, everything that we see happening right now, this is so they can remove him later and switch around the players. And we'll be talking about that in just a moment. Now, very interestingly, the Senate is scheduled to go back into recess on March 13, 2020. The Department of Justice and FBI needs to respond to the Pfizer court order due February 5th, which has still not been made public. Now, if Congress is going to reauthorize the controversial Pfizer provisions, they have 10 days to do it. In November of 2019, which was buried deep in the Congressional Budget Continuing Resolution, was a short-term extension to reauthorize the FISA business records provision. The roving wiretap provision, the lone wolf provision, and the more controversial bulk metadata provision. All part of the Patriot Act. And as a result of the FISA CR inclusion, the terminal deadline was pushed to March 15th, 2020. Mark Meadows tweeted out the following. You'll be hearing about March 15th over the next several days. It's when FISA expires. 13 days. Congress should not renew FISA authority under any circumstances without major changes first to protect Americans from abuse. Period. No changes equals no reauthorization. So we know that AG Bill Barr is requesting a clean FISA renewal with no reforms or revisions. Senate Leader Mitch McConnell and Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham support AG and his request. Representatives requesting FISA reform prior to renewal include Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Doug Collins, Jody Rice, Devin Nunes, Steve Scalise. Additionally, Senator Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, and Senator Rand Paul are trying to force reform or let the current version expire. The American people want it scrapped, or at a minimum, strongly revised. Congress is trying to hide the FISA renewal within the coronavirus appropriations bill. Ted Cruz tweeted out the following. Hearing rumors that the swamp is trying to tie long-term FISA reauthorization to emergency funding to fight the coronavirus. This should not happen. FISA process was abused to spy on real Donald Trump. We need real reform, not political games. And he's absolutely right. And we'll have to see how this all plays out. Because we know what FISA was used for. We also know that the Patriots are using FISA because FISA goes both ways. And we know the Patriots are using it right now. And Senate Chairman Lindsey Graham, he's the Judiciary Committee Chairman, said that he started closed-door interviews as part of his deep dive into the surveillance courts and the FBI's Russia probe. He confirmed to reporters that he started depositions. Graham is probing the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance or FISA court surveillance warrants involving Trump, his campaign associate Carter Page, and other FISA abuses. And he's doing it now behind closed doors. So he started the process. And we know from Q that Senator Lindsey Graham, he was activated. And we know that the fake impeachment is now over and done with, and it frees up the Senate. And we already see Senator Ron Johnson, he's issuing subpoenas. Senator Lindsey Graham is now having interviews with certain individuals, getting certain information. And we're starting to see the process move forward. Now, very interestingly, we know that Obamacare is a complete and utter disaster. And this was not a benefit to the people of the United States. And Trump and the Patriots, they understood this. And this is why they got rid of the tax penalty. And now we see that the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the Obamacare case. Now, the justices, they agreed to consider a case in which two lower courts ruled that the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional by virtue of Congress' repeal of the individual mandate, which required Americans to purchase government-approved health insurance or pay a tax penalty. And now the Supreme Court is going to look at this because once you strip that away, what do you have left? you have nothing left. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Supreme Court rules that this was completely unconstitutional. Remember, under Obamacare, we were tracking this. A lot of the exchanges, almost more than half of the exchanges, they went bankrupt. We saw insurance rates skyrocket. Everyone who didn't want to take insurance, they had to pay a hefty tax. Now, it started out small, but it increased over time. And we understand how this whole thing was put together. This wasn't put together to be a benefit to the people. This was put together to control the people, to tax the people. And through this system, the deep state operatives would have full control over everyone. Now, very interestingly, Michael Bloomberg is being called out for his hypocrisy on gun control at a town hall event. Now, remember, Michael Bloomberg is all for taking the weapons away from the people. And so is Biden and the rest of the individuals. This has been their plan since the beginning. We'll be going over that in just a moment. But there was an individual in the audience who asked Michael Bloomberg a question and said, how do you justify pushing for more gun control when you have an armed security detail that's likely equipped with the same firearms and magazines that you seek to ban the common citizens from owning? Does your life matter more than mine or my family's or these people? And he answered the question, and this is what he said. Look, I probably get 40 or 50 threats every week. Okay, and some of them are real. That just happens when you are the mayor of New York City or you are very wealthy. And if you are campaigning for the president of the United States, you get lots of threats. So he's saying that his life is more important because he's wealthy, he's running for the president, and he was the mayor, compared to the everyday person on the street. Well, I'm sorry, Michael Bloomberg. Everyone's life is precious. And we have the right to protect ourselves, just like you have the right to hire someone with a weapon to protect you. So Dana Loesch decided to respond to Michael Bloomberg's tweet. And this is Michael Bloomberg's tweet first. Not everyone loves what I have to say on guns, but here's the truth. I won't touch the Second Amendment, but I will pass gun safety laws. Now, of course, we know that's fake, phony, and false. Dana Loesch responded, you paid VA Democrats to ban commonly semi-auto rifles and demand citizens turn in or destroy their mags. You spend hundreds of millions to make felons out of innocent Americans, and you use stop and frisk as a gun control tactic. So this isn't true. And that is absolutely true. That whatever he's saying about the Second Amendment, they're going to try to touch it. This has been the plan since the beginning. If you think back and you go back in time when Obama was president and we had John Kerry as the Secretary of State, John Kerry submitted the UN Arms Treaty to the Senate. If the Senate passed it, it would have gone on to Obama. They would have used this to take or try to take away our Second Amendment rights, which they can't do, but they were going to say that they could because it was coming from the UN, and they were going to try to make it seem like it overrode any type of rights that we have, which is not true at all. And this was all part of their 16-year plan, which we'll be discussing in just a moment. Now, very interestingly, since everything's all said and done with the Russian collusion, the obstruction, the impeachment, Trump now has accepted Putin's proposal to hold a UN Security Council summit. And they're going to meet, and they're going to be talking about the arms race. And they're going to meet leaders from Russia, China, Britain, France, and they're going to be discussing arms control. And once again, this is about peace. This is about talking about the world to make sure that we do not enter any type of war. And if you notice, Trump has been pushing peace throughout the Middle East. He's ending all the endless wars. He calmed the situation down in North Korea. We are not going to war with Iran or China or Russia. So everything the deep state was trying to do, he is reversing. Now, very interestingly, with this whole coronavirus, we're starting to see in China that the number of cases that are being reported, they are dropping, they're declining, which means that this is burning itself out. But what we need to understand is that the mainstream media, they're going to continually push fear. No matter what happens, they will push it until the very end. But we have to understand why they're doing this. Because remember, there is no step 5. This is what they have and this is what they're using. Plus, we have to look at the different countries and we have to look at different states. Remember, Trump won that ruling about funding sanctuary cities and states. And look at the states that are now popping up saying that there are cases. We have California, we have New York. We're going to see many others. They're going to try to get federal funding from this event. But like we said before, we understand that all of this is being pushed by fear. And how do you get rid of fear? Well, all you have to do is make people not afraid. And Trump and the Patriots, they're already setting up the narrative. Now, is this going to happen tomorrow? No. This most likely will happen in the spring. Q has already given us some indication that it's going to happen in the spring. But the Trump War Room started to tweet out to already pave the way and set up the narrative of what is coming. This is the thread. President @ Donald Trump has taken decisive action to protect the American people from the coronavirus. Here's how. President Trump responded early and decisively to the coronavirus. Because of the president's early action, the risk of infection for Americans remains low, and we have been granted more time to prepare. President Trump has taken critical steps to prevent travelers from spreading the coronavirus to the United States. Actions to suspend travel to certain regions and implementing enhanced screening processes are providing an extra layer of protection to Americans. President Trump is making sure our state and local health officials have the support they need to respond to any coronavirus development. The White House is in constant communication with the state and local governments, and agencies are prepared to assist with response to the virus. The Trump administration is taking steps to ensure our medical community has the resources and protection they need. The U.S. is the most prepared country to deal with a pandemic. By stockpiling masks and authorizing additional medical tools, we will remain the most prepared. The Trump administration is working around the clock to expedite the development of a coronavirus vaccine and therapeutics to treat the virus. Partnerships between the federal government and private sector have already led to major developments, letting you know that there's going to be a cure. Now, are they going to go around vaccinating everyone, giving the cure to every single person? No, remember, optics are very important. Trump understands that this is being pushed by fear. To shut down everyone being afraid, all you have to do is say, we found the cure. We have a vaccine. And guess what? All that fear-mongering completely disappears. Boom, it is gone. Now, does this mean that the deep state is not going to try anything else? No, it means that they're going to try to push whatever they possibly can to clog the news cycles, push their agenda. And we see something very interesting happen out in California. A UPS worker in California planned a mass shooting, and his home was raided. There were 20,000 rounds of ammunition in his home. Thomas Andrew, 32, of Sunnyvale, California, was arrested on charges of evading police, driving under the influence, and several weapons violations. And they found high-capacity magazines, 5 tactical-style rifles, 1 shotgun, 3 handguns, full-body armor, and tactical backpacks loaded with ammunition staged at his front door. Now remember, we understand that the deep state, they can control innocence. And it seems that they were planning on something, and the Patriots, well, they heard the chatter, they sent out the word, and this individual was arrested. Now, everything that we're seeing is the deep state, the mainstream media, trying to confuse everyone. And I just want to go back to post 833. This is March 3rd, 2018. Now, if you notice, all these posts that I'm going to be talking about, they are from 2 years ago on this day. This is what this post says. And actually, it relates to what's happening right now. Reality is labeled as a conspiracy. You are made to feel crazy. You are told to obey. You are sheep to them, pawns to be sacrificed. Remember, we are winning. Do not trust what you read. Mind warfare. Up is down, left is right. Boom. Then we go into post 570. This is January 2018. Now, this is the 16-year plan to destroy America. They never thought she would lose. The 16-year plan to destroy America. Hussein, 8 years. Install rogue ops. Leak CINTEL military assets. We saw that done. Cut funding to the military. Command away from generals. Launch good guy takedown, internal remove. Valerie Jarrett, sniffer. Snowden, open source PRISM, key score. Target, weaken conservative base. IRS, mainstream media. Open the border, flood of illegals. Islamic State, MS-13, all coming into the country. Target, remove domestic assets. Blind eye to North Korea with their nuke build. Blind eye to Iran, fund and supply. Stage the Supreme Court. Antonio Scalia, 187. Uranium 1, fund supply. Iran, North Korea, reduce U.S. capacity. Kill NASA. Prevent space domination. Allow bad actors to take down military satellites. Hillary Clinton would have won, which they wanted her to win the next 8 years. World War III, death and weapons real. War fake and controlled. Population growth control, pocket billions. Eliminate final rogue ops within government military. Kill economy, starve, need, enslave. Open the borders, revive Constitution. Ban sale of firearms, Second Amendment removal. Install on team Supreme Court justices. Removal of Electoral College. Limit, remove funding of military. Closure of U.S. military installations worldwide. Destruction of opposing mainstream media, other news outlets, censoring. Now, if you read all of this, you can see that it's still happening today. What is Biden saying? He's going to have Beto O'Rourke be the individual who goes around confiscating weapons. We have Michael Bloomberg, who wants to take weapons away from the people. And we understand from all of this is they were selling military secrets to other countries. They were trying to bring the economy to its knees. They were shifting all the manufacturing companies out of this country. North Korea, they had a blind eye. They were building nuclear weapons. They were going to be used later on. Same thing with Iran. They were staging the Supreme Court. All of this was being done, and they worked for a very long time to bring the entire country to a certain point. Then the Patriots stepped in and shut it all down. Now, does this mean the deep state is gone? Does this mean they're not trying? No, we can see that they still are. Remember, the Patriots are in control, though. They're still trying to finish out their 16-year plan. Think about what the D's have just done. They instructed all their candidates to drop out, and all the delegates went to who? Biden. This will allow Biden to overtake Sanders. Sanders, they can't control. Biden, they have complete control over Biden. Remember how Hillary Clinton was hinting about running for president? Then she was hinting about becoming a vice president. If someone asked her, sure, I'll be vice president, because this is her way to get into the race very easily. If you notice, we've been seeing polls about Michelle Obama. She's been on magazine covers. There's petitions. They're building the narrative. If you notice, Barack Obama, still no endorsement as of yet, not even to Biden. Now, the deep state players, they're beginning to endorse Biden. We have John O'Brennan. Joe Biden is one of the most honest, decent, practical, and experienced individuals with whom I've ever worked. If nominated and elected, he is capable of unifying our country and restoring America's stand around the world. James Comey voted in first Dem primary to support party dedicated to restoring values in White House. I agree with Amy Klobuchar. We need a candidate who cares about all Americans and will restore decency, dignity to the office. There is a reason Trump fears Joe Biden and roots for Bernie. Well, we know that's not true, but again, I also know that there are staffers in the Biden camp that rejected Comey, but that's not the point here. These are the individuals. These are the deep state players trying to push their agenda. Now, remember, Biden said he can only be a one-term president. Think about what they're setting up here. Hillary Clinton, she has no problem being a vice president. Now, if Biden is a one-term president, who else is going to take the place? Who else is going to fill in? I don't even think Biden is going to make it. I think he's going to bow out because of maybe mental illness. And if Hillary Clinton's on the ticket, is there a way they can bring someone else in? And I do believe they're trying to finish the 16-year plan. But what do Trump and the Patriots have? They have all the evidence. They have all the facts. Let's go back to post 2922. Remember, I said all these posts have to do with March 3rd, going back either to 2018 or 2019. This is post 2922. This is March 3rd, 2019. D-Class is coming. Post 2923. March Madness incoming. Wow. As you can see where we are right now, it is March Madness. 2936. March 3rd, 2019. At what stage in the game do you play the trump card? So what is the trump card? The trump card is the winning card. If you play a trump card during a game of spades, it means that you take the whole trick. In other words, you'll pick up every card on the table. Now, the trump card is a particular stratagem or resource that will give one a distinct advantage over others, often by being held and then used at an opportune time. They've been holding the trump card. They've been holding the D-Class, the investigations, Assange, Epstein, and the rest on purpose, because you want to use it at the right time. And as you can see, the deep state, they're setting everything up. They're using their events. They're trying to start other events. Remember, they had no step 5. This latest one, they used a lot of ammunition, and it's dying out. And they know it. They know that they can only take this so far because fear only works until a certain point. Then people start to wake up. People then see the reality. And there are a lot of people starting to see reality. They're not believing in what they're being told because there's many others out there telling them something completely different. And people are starting to realize, wow, all these people are recovering. This is not as bad as they're making it out to be. Now, of course, are they going to continue to push this? Of course they are. Trump and the Patriots, they're waiting for the exact moment that will give them the most leverage to strike the deep state. And it looks like the deep state is trying to finish their 16-year plan. Will they ever get there? No. Why? Because Trump and the Patriots, they know their playbook. Why do you think Trump has been calling out Bernie Sanders, talking about superdelegates, and explaining what is really going on here? Because they understand what they're doing, and they want them to doing. They're actually pushing them in this direction. If you know the person's playbook, you know how to direct them. Remember, we're watching a show. The Patriots are directing it. Enjoy it. Watch what happens next.